future cannot be predicted. It will be invented.
Holy mackerel. It's impossible.
Fantastic speeds.
3, 2,
It's dramatically new.
1.
The next Android Developer Challenge is here. And this time, we're focused on Jetpack Compose. Jetpack Compose is Android's modern toolkit for building native UI. Turbocharge your app building with less code, powerful tools, and intuitive Kotlin API. Designing beautiful apps has never been quicker. With direct access to the Android platform APIs and built-in support for material design, animations, and more. The beta of Jetpack Compose has launched, and it's ready to help you lift off. This year's Android Developer Challenge will help you take to the skies and fly through Jetpack Compose. Over the next new weekly challenges, each focused on a liftoff insight designed to help you get to know Compose and different parts of the Compose APIs. With own chances to win, there are prizes for every challenge and more. The Android Developer Challenge is here. So the question is, are you ready to lift off? The next Android Developer Challenge is here. And this time, we're focused on Jetpack Compose. Jetpack Compose is Android's modern toolkit for building native UI. Turbocharge your app building with less code, powerful tools, and intuitive Kotlin APIs. Designing beautiful apps has never been quicker. With direct access to the Android platform APIs and built-in support for material design, animations, and more. The beta of Jetpack Compose has launched, and it's ready to help you lift off. This year's Android Developer Challenge will help you take to the skies and fly through Jetpack Compose. Over the next new weekly challenges, each focused on a liftoff insight designed to help you get to know Compose and different parts of the Compose APIs. With own chances to win, there are prizes for every challenge and more. The Android Developer Challenge is here. So the question is, are you ready to lift off? The next Android Developer Challenge is here. And this time, we're focused on Jetpack Compose. Jetpack Compose is Android's modern toolkit for building native UI. Turbocharge your app building with less code, powerful tools, and intuitive Kotlin APIs. Designing beautiful apps has never been quicker. With direct access to the Android platform APIs and built-in support for material design, animations, and more. The beta of Jetpack Compose has launched, and it's ready to help you lift off. This year's Android Developer Challenge
The future cannot be predicted. It will be invented.
Holy mackerel. It's impossible.
Fantastic speeds.
3,
It's dramatically new.
Good evening, everyone. I welcome you all to Compete and Compose, and I hope all of you are doing really great and building awesome things using Kotlin and Compose and enjoying the session that's been going on for the past month. I, Ishar Jain from GDSC, Maharaja Agrasen Institute of Technology, welcome you all to this grand 6-hour long hackathon type event organized and collaborated with more than 50 Google clubs all over the country. That is Compete and Compose. Why Compete and Compose, you ask? What's behind the name? So, in this event, all of you will put your skills to test, will compete throughout using Compose Pack. And a little bit more about this event. So, as you all know, Google Developer Student Club is a community of students all over the world. And in this club, we have events throughout the year. And the past month was dedicated to Kotlin and Compose Pack. So celebrating that technology, enhancing on that technology, every Google club all over the world has organized this camp. And what have we learned from this camp? We can only know if we put it to test, if we build something. So for that, more than 50 Google club from all over the country like GDSC Mate, GDSC Gaya, GDSC Indore has decided to come together and build a hackathon for all of you. And I hope everyone is as excited as I am, as my hosts are, as my guests are to put their skills to test and compete. But before moving any further, can we have something in chat for showing this excitement? Can we have some fire emojis or just whatever you are feeling right now? Can we have in chat or whatever emoji do you like? I want everyone to be as excited as we are. Can we have some emoticons in chat? Come on, chat is open for all of you. Just spam him for a moment. Just spam it. I want everyone to be as excited as we are. All right, all right. I see some emoticons. Nice. Okay, was hands, elbow cuff. Okay. I think the COVID has gone now. We can. Okay. Yes, I see some fire emojis. Wow. Awesome, awesome. We have enthusiastic chat people. Awesome. Nice username, Ackerman. I like it. Awesome. We all are excited in this. We all are excited. Okay. I see we have great audience. I see we have great builders with us. That's amazing. Now, as we all know, all the knowledge of code and programming is worthless if we are not putting it to test. What is software engineering? We are building solutions, we are building experiences. And if we are not solving real world problems, that's nothing then. So, helping us tackle the same problem, we have an immense knowledgeable speaker today, Mr. Nelson Glauber. He is a senior Android developer working at Nagaro, and he has almost 13 years of programming experience with Android. Sir has also worked with companies like Google, Motorola, Samsung, HP, Positivo in the past. So here I would like to introduce Mr. Nelson Glauber and hand over the session to Mr. Nelson Glauber for giving an interesting and knowledgeable talk and informative ride to our session about how to use Jetpack Compose in real world projects. Over to you, sir.
Hi, everyone. Can I share my screen? Okay. Let me share screen. Okay. It's here, I guess. Okay. Can you see my screen? Okay, I'm not sure.
Yes, sir, your screen is visible.
Okay, awesome, thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Nelson. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to the organization of the event for organizing this event and also to having me here. It's a big pleasure. My name is Nelson. I'm from Brazil. This is my Twitter handle, but you can also find me on GitHub, YouTube, Twitter, Medium, all using this handle. And today I will talk about Jetpack Compose in a real project. I will try my best to bring this content in 25 minutes. But after that, I think we will have some time to ask questions. So feel free to ask questions in the end. Unfortunately, it's a very short time. Okay, let's get started. The first thing is the project that I worked on started in February last year, and just last month was released. It was like one year and a half, but it was a huge application. But now it's live and it's nice. And of course, I cannot bring the client and the real application, but I bring an example of some techniques that I use in this real application. This is a very simple example. This is a book registration. It's available on my GitHub. And it's 100% written in Kotlin and using Compose. This is a very simple application. You just can include, remove, update books. The user can also take a picture of the book's cover. But the techniques used in this project is important. Another interesting sample is this one. It's available on the Android GitHub. The application is now in Android. So during the presentation, I will mention some difference between the now in Android application and the books application, which was the previous one, and in the real project. So I will mention these three experiments, these three applications. So basically, a project overview. It's a native app, 100% written in Kotlin. I'm using Jetpack Compose for UI, of course, otherwise I will not be here. It's using the single activity model. For the ones that are not familiar with the old Android development type, Previously, every screen of an Android application was an activity. And then after the introduction and improvement of the Fragments API, we start to use a single activity, but with multiple fragments and using the navigation library. And now with Compose, we are following the same idea. We have just one activity, and the navigation between screens is made by using navigation library, and now with Compose screens. In the Books application, I'm using Firebase as a backend, but in the real application, I'm using REST APIs, regular REST API. And this application, the real application and the Books application, are using feature modules. I mean, every feature in the application is a separate module. I will explain that later in details, but that's the idea. This is the project overview. In terms of architecture and modules, basically, we are trying to follow the clean architecture. I'm not sure if all of you are familiar with this, but there's a clean architecture, which is basically a set of principles to build a better architecture. This is what we are trying to do, following these principles. It's important to know that a clean architecture is not something that should be or must be by the book. You can just follow the principles. A good thing is follow the principles, but you can adapt your needs in according to the principles of clean architecture. So basically, I'm using MVVM in the presentation layer, using view model based on the Jetpack view model library. I'm using use cases for business logic. This is one thing that now in Android applications not using. I will explain this part later, but basically between the view model and the repository, I have another layer where I'm declaring the business logic. I'm using repositories as a data source. It's another difference between the now in Android application and the Books application and the real project application. In the now in Android, we have a repository which receives data sources as parameter. So the repository will use these data sources to save and retrieve data. In Books application, in my project, the repository itself is already a data source. So you can retrieve and restore data directly from the repository. If you need a different implementation of the repository, you have to implement a different one. This is what I did. For the sample application, the book application, I have a Firebase repository and a Room repository for local persistence. Of course, in the real application, I just have one repository, which is for access the REST APIs. When I'm saying one repository is one kind of repository, of course, I have several repositories, but all these repositories are accessing the REST API. Dependency injection, I'm using Hilt. Particularly, I like the Coin dependency library, but at the time when the project starts, Coin was not supporting Compose. So I decided to use Hilt, and it was a grateful surprise. It's easy to use and have awesome integration with the navigation library and the view model. So at the end of the day, it was a good choice. Okay, so how the data flow in the application? Basically, we have a screen, which is your composable, and the screen call functions in the view model and receive updates, state updates from the view model. So basically, the view model contains the view logic and expose the state using, I'm just giving a spoiler here, but view model expose a flow of state. So the main purpose of the screen is observe the state and draw the UI according to the state. Well, the view model called the business validation rules available on the use case. Again, this is an optional layer. now in Android application does not have this layer, but I particularly like to use, because if you have some reusable code and in your screen, like imagine I have this book application, and the book application in the list, I have an option to delete book. And then imagine that you have the same option in another screen. But this deletion operation can have some rules attached to this operation. So it's good to have this logic in a centralized place. In this case, is the use case. So I like to have this layer. So basically, the view model check the business validation rules in the use case, receive the new state, and update the state internally. And of course, again, exposing this state to the screen, which will react to this new state. And the use case called the view model. The use case called the repository to save and retrieve data. And there is an important thing here in the repository. The repository parse and return the result. This is an important part. We have a duplication between these two layers, because in the repository, for instance, I have like a book entity, and this book entity can have some information which is just important to the repository, but it's not the same thing of the business logic and not in the use case. So the repository, let's imagine that the repository using room. If I want to persist information in the room repository, I will use some annotations which is just for room implementation. But the use case, the business logic, the application itself does not need to know the existence of these annotations. So in this case, the repository convert the book class used to persist to the book class available in the business logic layer. So this is why I put this parse the result in the repository, this communication between the repository and the use case. In terms of modules, this is how the books application are organized, and also the real application. Basically, we have the feature modules accessing the domain layer, and also this core Android module. And the core Android module is depending on the core module, and the domain layer is defining a repository which is implemented for this data modules. I'll explain that better. Basically, we have this core library which contains pure Kotlin classes and functions. So every utility function which is pure written in Kotlin will be in this core module. In the core Android module, we have this reusable components and classes and functions which depends of the Android framework. So if you create a reusable component, the good place to put this component is in the core Android module. It's interesting. In the now in Android application, if you look at the code, you find much more modules like core resources, core testing, core. But to simplify here in my sample, we just have core and core Android. The domain layer is the place where I'm declaring the use case, pure entities, and the repository specification. So just the interface of the repository will be declared in the domain. This is one of the principles of the clean architecture. One thing is you should look at your system and easily identify what this system does. You know, so if you look at the domain layer of the application, you can see all the operations, all the use cases that your application is running. So this is a good thing. Imagine that a new person is joining your project. If this person look at the domain layer, it will be clear which actions and which tasks the application is available to do. The repository implementation, in the books application, I have two implementations, Firebase and local. Local is using room. And finally, all the app features are located under the feature folder. So I have login feature, I have books feature, I have settings feature, and my application has a lot of features. So all the features are under this feature folder. Dealing with state. The main purpose of the Compose is a declarative UI which reacts to state. So how to deal with this state? Basically, the first thing that we have to be aware is that we have two kinds of state. We have the pure state, pure UI state, and which is basically remember scroll state, remember scaffold state, swipe to refresh state. So basically, is the states just for the components, which is not related to the data and business layer. And we have the business state and also data state. Basically, the idea here that I want to bring to you is have one and just one state, because this is another concept from Compose, is the single source of truth. This is one thing that I did wrong at the beginning of the real project. Was I was declaring a lot of states in the view model, and the screen was observing all these states. It was causing a total mess because I have a lot of state changing at the same time, and it was crazy. So the better thing is you should declare just one class which contains the state of the screen and expose as flow. And one particular thing that we did in the application is use this result state class to represent any async operation. So using a result state class, you can represent when the operation is loading, when you receive a success response or an error response. This is what I do. Basically, I declare this CLD interface result state, and then all the operation can be loading, success, or error. And in case of error, I have this error entity where I can get the information from the error and display an error properly, And all operation made by the repository is returning a flow of result state. And when this flow starts, I send a loading, I do something, do some operation in the repository, and then if everything goes fine, I return success. Otherwise, I return an error. And in my book form UI state, which is the class that I am exposing a state of my book form screen, which is the form that they use is inserting the book data. I have these two fields, book details state, which is the one when I get the book's information, and the save book state, which is when I save the book. You can ask me, oh, Nelson, but I can have like a flag like is loading. But imagine that I can have a different loading for different operations. When I'm loading a book, I want a full loading screen. But when I'm saving, I just want that the book save turns to a loading indicator. So this is a good thing. And also for errors. For error, when I'm loading the data, I can have an action. And for when I save a book, I can have a different action. And here is an example. I have this book form view model, which I have this multiple state flow. I'm going to change the state internally, so it's private. And I'm exposing this Y state to the screen. When I call load book, I'm calling the use case dot load book details, passing the book ID, and I'm updating the state internally. This is I'm using the Kotlin copy to create a new instance of the same state. Create a copy of the states, just changing a field. And for all operations, like change the title of the book, I have the set title, which will update the title. If I have like set publisher, set number of pages, set author, all these functions have a particular function in the view model to update the internal state. But see, here I just have one state, and the screen is observing this state. And my screen, here I have the book form destination. I'll explain that later. But in my book form destination, I have this, I'm instantiating my view model, observing the state, and in according to the state, I show a different information. If it's loading, I display a loading indicator. If an error, I display an error. Otherwise, I display the book screen. Notice that here I'm passing the book as a parameter to the screen and the callbacks. This is a good practice. You should not pass a view model or navigation controller to the screen because it will make your screen harder to test. It will be hard to write tests for this screen because you are creating this dependency. Okay, in terms of navigation, one thing that you should do is organize your navigation layer. This is another thing that it's easy to start to be crazy. So since we are using the single activity model, it's essential that we have one single nav host. Because if you have more than one nav host, this is one mistake that I did. I have one nav host for each module. And this is wrong. It becomes harder when you need to implement a deep link or navigate from one feature to another. So one nav host for the whole app. One graph per feature, so you can have nested navigation because the navigation library is clever and support nested navigation, nested graphs in the navigation definition. You can pass complex objects to the navigation, but it's not recommended. So if you want to pass serializable or parsable, it's supported, but Google strongly recommend to not do this. And view model is scoped based on the nav backstack entry. What does it mean? It means that if you have the screen A, B, and C, and the screen C is instantiating a view model, when you pop the screen C from the stack, the view model will be cleared. This is very nice because the control, the allocation and the allocation of the view model is controlled by the navigation library. So my organization of navigation was basically the nav host contain all the definition, the definition of routes of all application. A route is a term that I use in the project where I'm declaring the parameters and the return logic of every screen. So all screens have a route object representing the route and the parameters. And the destination should contain all the navigation logic. So I have a route and a destination. I already display show on a destination here, but I'll explain again. The destination, the purpose of a destination is instantiate the view model, pass the callbacks as parameter to the screen, and you should not instantiate a view model into the screen. So the idea is create a screen and just pass the data and callbacks, but not pass the view model or navigation controller. Again, don't pass the navigation controller to the screen, pass callbacks instead. So that's the idea. I create this app route class, which contains the route. And here is the book details route. This is the screen which displays the book details. So to display a book details, I need the parameter book ID. So my route will be base route / curly braces param book ID. I have these navigation arguments. And here I have two functions. Get the book ID from the backstack entry. So here I'm getting the parameter. And build book details route to create the route for that particular book. So this is the route. For every screen, I have a route object. Because imagine, otherwise, I have to declare all these things inside of a single file. I was doing this. So it was like 100,000 lines of code. So it was crazy. So it's better you split in smaller files. So here I have my nav host, and each function of that is a nested graph for a particular module. This is an example of the books graph for the books feature. And the books graph is an extension function of the nav graph builder. And I have the navigation, and I have each screen of this module. Okay, so I have like the book list destination, and here I have the book details route. Book details route dot route. The arguments is in book details route. Notice the things are organized and simple and concise. Okay, and the book destination was the class that I showed before. Basically, the book destination will get the param book ID from the route. Again, it's centralized there. Book details view model is instantiated. Then I observe the state and display the screen using the state and the callbacks. Again, notice that I'm passing data and callbacks. I'm not passing neither the view model, neither the nav controller. Okay, some tips to make Compose development easier. First, keep your Compose related libraries updated. This is very important. I left this project in March because it was starting the bug fix phase and I had to assume another project. But just now, in the last month, they were updating the Compose library, and there's a lot of difference. Compose is very speed of development, so they are increasing things, fixing bugs. So keep Compose libraries updated. Join the Jetpack Compose channel in Kotlin Slack. If you are not part of the Kotlin Slack, go there and join. I'm there, so if you have any questions later, you can ask me there. Create reusable components as much as you can. It's important to have reusable components across the application. And provide preview functions for your composable. This is another good thing. It's nice to open a file and have something like this. Like I create this component rating bar, and it's nice to open and see some examples of use, how this component acts in dark mode and in light mode. So please create preview functions for your composable. Just to wrap up, the declarative UI approach for native Android development is here to stay. It's a new standard of the industry. So React Native is using Flutter, Swift UI. So it's important to be aware of this concept. And you are already doing this studying Compose. You can adopt Compose progressively if you are already part of a development team. You can migrate your application to Compose step by step, component by component, screen by screen. And the last thing you do is migrate the navigation. It's much more easy to create code and integrate and adapt and adjust to the designs. It's a low learning curve. If you already know some like React Native, Swift UI, or React, it will be easier to learn. And it's the new industry standard, so be ready. That's it from my side. Again, my name is Nelson. I'm part of the Google Developer Expert team. I joined the program in 2014, and our responsibility is share knowledge with you, with the community. And I'm part of this program. It's a big pleasure. And I'm also an Android developer at Nagarro. Digital Ventures is a specific BU from Nagarro. But yeah, that's it. Thank you. I can't hear you, Risha.
Well, that was an amazing talk by Mr. Nelson. And on behalf of everyone, thanks, Mr. Nelson, for having this talk with us. Can we have thank you in the chat? Can we have some emoticons in the chat, everyone? Okay. Yeah. Can we have some emojis? Can we have some thanks into the chat, please? Yes. Tushar writing thank you. Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. Aditi says thank you. Okay.
Yeah, I was talking very fast because, again, I used to do this presentation in like 35, 40 minutes. And I'm pretty sure that not everyone will collect all these things, but it's important just to know, oh, okay, we have clean architecture, we have use case layer, we have to organize the navigation, just to give this main idea, organize the things, because now we have more code spread in Kotlin files. So the main thing is organize your code and try to follow some important principles.
Yes. Now, I know all of you are excited to know the problem statements. I know all of you are excited to build upon that problem statement. For that, I would like to invite my co-host, Ms. Sarika Prohit from GDSC IST to reveal the problem statement. Here to you, Sarika.
Thank you so much, Ishar. I also know you all are excited about our panelist discussion session with our speakers Himanshu Singh sir, with our speaker Pankaj Rai sir, and with our speaker Nelson sir. So, but first of all, let's rolling out the problem statements. There are some points you need to keep in mind during the competition or hackathon. There are two tracks. First one is Kotlin with XML, and the second one is Kotlin with Compose. Each track has three problem statements. You can select or choose any problem statement to build your application. You are required to build only one application from any of the two of tracks. Each problem statement has two different levels. The first one is beginner level and the second one is advanced level, mentioning the point that prices will vary for both the levels, for the beginner level and for the advanced level as well. You need to complete or implement the mentioned features in your application. You can creative you can creative with your implementation of application, but the basic idea and feature must be as mentioned. You can join our Discord server for any queries. The link of our Discord server will be put in the chat box. Just go through it and join our Discord server for the queries during the hackathon. Now, coming to the judgment criteria or the judging criteria, for the beginner level, a non functional UI is enough for all the applications. You should have a decent UI with a good color theme. You may add your own functionalities, UI elements as per your creativity. And the second one for the advanced level is you need to implement the required features properly working. Now, coming towards the submission criteria, you have to submit your project ideas on Dayfolio's dashboard at the mentioned link, and yeah, the link of the submission will be put in the chat box, or you can found it on the Folio dashboard. And you also have to mention a GitHub link of the project, pictures, snapshots, screenshots of your application with a demo video is required for the application. Yeah, so are you guys ready for the problem statements rolling out and for winning the excited prizes? The problem statements are for Kotlin with XML is NGO app, the second one is news app, and the third one is item auction. And for the advanced level with Kotlin and Compose is mood tracker, table booking, and task manager. You can just scan the QR code to know more about the problem statements or for the description of the problem statements. All the very best, guys, and we can move forward for the panel discussion, right?
Now, as we all know, software engineering thrives on idea. It thrives on discussion and ideas and our interaction as an engineer. That's very important. So, for keeping up with that spirit, we have an interesting panel discussion, although open panel discussion with our guest and our co-host. So, for that, I would like to introduce Mr. Krishna Soni from GDSC IST and Sarika Prohit from GDSC IST to head over and to lead the panel discussion with Mr. Pankaj Rai, Mr. Nelson Gauber, and Mr. Himanshu Singh. So over to you guys.
Thank you so much, Ishar.
Thanks, Ishar. I feel honored to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Himanshu Singh. He is India's first Google developer expert for Android and a vast experience of more than 6 years and currently a full-time engineer at Clue by BioWing in Berlin, Germany. He has done many certifications in Android, including Google. He has worked on multiple sectors including health sector, rental and gaming platforms. His primary focus is on building robust architecture and making apps scalable. Apart from Android domain, he is an active open source contributor and backend developer. He has been volunteering as the speaker of Google Developer Student Club for the last 7 years to mentor students and clubs. Today, we are glad that we are getting the opportunity to take his guidance. So, now I would like to call Mr. Himanshu Singh to guide us with his beautiful experience. So, please, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Krishna. And it is also my immense pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Pankaj Rai sir. Introducing Pankaj Rai sir, who has expertise in a variety of fields, including machine learning, Kotlin, and Android development, makes me feel incredibly happy. In addition to being an expert Google developer for Android and Firebase, sir has experience with AR and Flutter. He has also produced numerous articles on the subject of Android programming. Additionally, Sir has worked as a software engineer for Android app development at Purple Talk India Private Limited and currently employed at Verizon as an MTS third CSIT app developer. Welcome, sir, for the panelist discussion.
Okay. So, here's my first question is from all the three. So, sir, what
Panelists,
made you fall in for sir? What made you fall in love with the development or as a whole coding? Himanshu, sir.
Okay, I thought you would be asking someone to go first. Hey, folks. Hi. So for me, I would not say it was like a love to start coding. It was just, for me, initially, it was an exploratory platform. I was exploring coding as well as some certain design levels. With coding, I got to know that if done correctly, it can literally solve a lot of problems going around. So that started my process of getting into coding, and eventually that shifted to Android ecosystem. That was pretty much how that started.
Okay. Pankaj, sir.
Well, for me, I actually started developing app when I was in my fourth year. So, and the first app that I built was just like a calculator application. You feed two numbers, add, show the result. And at that time, it has shown, it was like a bit interesting stuff for me that so far I have just used the application, but this was the first time I was creating something on my own. And then when I joined this startup company, I got an opportunity even to work as an Android developer itself. So the immense capability that Android provide, that itself provides a lot of enthusiasm also. We have around 3 billion devices if you combine all the platforms. So it's the power which developer holds is immense with Android. And that's what excites me to be still with app development, even though I've tried out multiple platforms, but still I love to be the Android developer itself.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
So,
I think I'm the older one here. I starting. I think I heard a phrase from a statement from Bill Gates saying that he preferred the lazy programmers. I think I'm the ones because I was starting in an accounting company and I was leading with Excel sheets and I was trying to create some formulas and I noticed that it was possible to use Visual Basic to write some macros. So I started with that and then I started learning Delphi for desktop applications. Then I go to Java. It was in 2002, it did like 20 years ago. And then I started with Java. Then I went to Java Micro Edition for smartphones, and there where I start with mobile. And in 2008, I started with Android development, and I'm here since then.
okay, that's great, sir.
Yeah, it's
it's
a
a
long time.
great experience from your view, sir. And and again, my next question is for all the three panelists. As we know, a developer gets into many errors. So while developing any application, so is there any community to help him get over it? Like, do you want to share any of your community that helps you during the your journey of application development?
Yeah, I think
Sir,
now.
some good. Yeah, sir.
Yeah, I think nowadays it's you can find any GDG. It's awesome to have these initiatives from the community. Unfortunately, at the beginning of my journey, I didn't have this, but it's nice to see this initiatives. But now GDGs, Kotlin Slack channels, and so on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sir, in your time, how you get over the things like when you do such things and no any communities were there?
Yeah, because this is one thing that it's during my entire life. I just go to sleep after midnight because at the time I have to connect to the internet after midnight. So this is the time that I have to study. So my education in programming, it was basically using books and internet and all this stuff. So it was the life. Now the life is easier.
Okay. Yeah.
I also have just a single suggestion around that. Uh, Nowadays, definitely, as Nelson said, a lot of communities are there helping you around. But the first person to help yourself should be yourself, right? You can literally go and ask questions, but when people actually ask you, what did you try before asking this question, you should also have an answer to that. Because that also, I totally agree with Nelson, because when I started, there were very less resources. Then we started to pick things up. But now, if you start picking up questions directly, thinking that somebody from the community will just pop up and help you out, they also have a job to do. So it would not happen instantly. They might come back to you with their answers. So it's always nice to first research yourself, check Stack Overflow, for example, maybe Kotlin Slang, Slack. There's ASG group, a lot of places. You just go around, see what's the best way possible. If you literally do not get an answers to, then you ask a question on a forum or some Slack places. That should be the best place, I would think, how you can resolve your issues.
Okay. Yeah. Pankaj sir, like, what are your views on the same?
Uh, well, I agree with both of them. When even I started, it was a bit difficult to figure it out. If I get any issue, then the only thing which I was left out was check on Stack Overflow, YouTube, and even to reach out to a few other developer advocates. But nowadays, we have so many good forums. There are many developers who have joined the other platforms like Decor or even Stack Overflow is also quite active. YouTube, there are so many guys who are on YouTube creating so many great quality content. And even if you write comment there, they'll reply back to you. So it's all about where you want to get started with and pick up the small things. Don't look for the extraordinary fancy stuff because if you have the basics strong, the rest you can build on your own. But if you are not looking for the basic itself and then trying to look for someone else that let me ask this guy, let him respond, I'll just copy and paste. That's a very temporary solution. You may get it resolved just for one or two time, but in a longer run, that's not going to help for you. So try to figure it out the solution on your own. Try to build up those confidence in yourself that if I'm not getting the solution, can I figure it out from any other platform? Get help from someone and then try to build on your own instead of relying on someone else. But while taking GDSC Compose Camp sessions, there is one common thing which I heard a lot that when they develop application, they do end up with some or the other errors or the issues. So where should they ask question? And that's where I got an idea that why not to build something for them too. So I built an app that is Ask the Expert. That the basic fundamental idea was this itself, that if you have any question, go to that platform, ask the questions, and that's basically for the GDSC students itself.
Okay, that's great, sir. So my next question is again to all the panelists. How many technologies have you worked with till now, and how did you decide on Kotlin as your domain language?
Yeah, I can start again. Well, actually, again, I started with Delphi and then I went to ASP, the original ASP. Then I went to PHP, and then I started Java Enterprise Edition, and then I quit the backend development. It was like 2007. Then I moved to Java MA, and when I was working to Motorola here in Brazil, Motorola introduced the Android phones here. So, oh, this is what I want to do. So I started with Android in 2008. Oh, that's awesome. But everybody said, "Oh, Java, Android is nice, but Java is terrible." And it was a very, very good news when we received Kotlin as a language, because it's flexible, it's easy, it's extensible, and it's awesome. So this is, I noticed. Now I'm learning Flutter like 6 months ago, and Flutter is nice as well. But I don't like Dart language, so I would say that Flutter would be perfect if it would be in Kotlin. But yeah, I still prefer Kotlin.
For me as well, if I have to put that way, it was the same thing that I experimented starting off with Golang. I started doing backend in that. It was nice, but it didn't have a lot of scope, to be honest, at that point when I was starting up in coding stuff. So then I moved into Android ecosystem. I did some few things in Java, and then I think the beta release was announced in IO with Kotlin. Then the whole experimentation started, and hence got settled up with Kotlin. And with Kotlin ecosystem growing, it gave me various domains to even try this out in backend. So yeah, hence I stopped into Kotlin.
For me, I started with C++, and then when I started my career as app developer, so that's the time when I switched to Java. And before Google announced Kotlin as an official language for app development, so in 2016 I was using Kotlin for app development. And I even suggested in a startup that why don't we use Kotlin, because Java is okay, but it requires to write a lot of code, and Kotlin is like super amazing language. You write very less amount of code, get so much advanced stuffs too. And then when Google announced it as an official language in 2017, that's where it gives a boost to the team also to adopt Kotlin, get started with the features that it provides. So that was the time when formally started using Kotlin for all the app that I was developing. And then if there was any such case when I have to switch to Java, then it was like, why I am doing this? So once you use Kotlin, you'll really not feel even to go back to Java and then create application. But still legacy app uses Java. I'm glad that majority of the companies have switched to Kotlin. They should even. And then after that, I also tried out Flutter, even Jetpack Compose. So I started using Jetpack Compose when it was in early dev version. Since then, Compose has gone through a very long journey: dev, then alpha, beta, RC, and then finally stable version. So Jetpack Compose is something which I feel, as compared to me for Flutter and Jetpack Compose, if I have to choose any among them, then I would prefer Jetpack Compose over Flutter. Even though Flutter provides single code base for all the platform, but still I love Jetpack Compose.
Okay, that's great, sir. So my next question to Nelson, sir. Sir, what was your learning curve for Jetpack Compose?
Yeah, for me it was a little bit easier because I worked for 1 year in a React Native project. It's the worst experience ever. Every event that I participate, I would like to emphasize this. I hate React Native, but at least it was good to learn this lesson regarding the declarative UI and have this react to a new state and build the UI. And so this is one good thing from the React Native project. But it was a very low curve because of this. But even though when we adopt the Compose in this new project, we had another two developers, Android developers, which has no experience with React Native. And like in 1 week, these developers were working with Compose easily, because it's easy to understand the code. So that's it.
Okay. So my next question to Himanshu sir. Sir, is there any proper future plan for anyone who chooses Kotlin as his or her first priority programming language? What is the future of Kotlin according to you?
Honestly, I would not be the right person to say what's the future of Kotlin. It's for the JetBrains to decide. But for whatever I can say as a community person, it's fairly good enough. I would say it is venturing into Kotlin multi-platform. It has a backend service of its own. It has a serialization library of its own. The community is literally, I would say, in a one word, it's exploding in Kotlin. It is becoming like the go-to language for a lot of Java devs. Java is still there, and just to clarify, it's not getting dead. So Java is still there. Kotlin will also survive alongside that if we will have two different languages around that same time. But it has a very good future, to be honest. So Android apps in itself, everybody, whenever someone picks it up, they choose Kotlin if it's a native app, obviously. Flutter is another option. But even when you do in Flutter, you still need to do certain level of native coding as well. If it's, let's say, for hardware interactions. But there's also Kotlin multi-platform. So a lot of ecosystem, let's say in the mobile side, backend side, even the front end, we have Kotlin. So it's going good.
Okay, thank you, sir. So my next question to Pankaj sir. Sir, how do you adapt yourself in this programming language?
In Kotlin, you mean?
Yes, sir, in Kotlin.
Well, for Kotlin, it is like the moment you start using it, the moment you understand the syntax of it, after that you will not even feel a need to switch to any other language, provided that language do not fulfill the requirement. But as Himanshu was saying, that we have Kotlin for the backend too, front end for Android. We have even KMM. If you want to build a Android iOS application, you can do with Kotlin KMM. So Kotlin is almost everywhere because it does give you an ability to work with in it is compatible with Java, it is compatible with JavaScript. So Kotlin gives you a very good advantage that once you learn this language, you are not just limited to app development, but rather it's purely up to you. You can go for web development, backend development, app development, and the feature set that it provides is super handy. So it's like once you start using Kotlin and you switch to some other language, then you'll start searching those features. Do I have higher order function, extension functions, etc., etc.? So it's just about using the language. Once you start using the language, you'll automatically find it so helpful to continue development with that language, and you get habituated to that language itself.
Okay, sir.
Just one thing, just to take advantage of this Pankaj comment. I'm not sure if the other GDs are agree with me, but this is one term that I particularly don't like. It's regarding Google Developer Expert. We are, I'm not considered an expert. The term of this program is like we like to share our knowledge with the community, and I like the MVP from Microsoft and most valuable professional. So it's like a person that contribute to the community, but I particularly don't like this expert title.
Okay, so my next question from you all three is what are the most enjoyable moments in your career while using Kotlin? Like any journey or any experience or any error you have faced during using Kotlin or work with Kotlin on any Android application? Please, sir. Manshu, sir?
I'll have to start. There are a lot of issues. Like I will not say one couple of moments, but there are a lot. Like if I have built an open source library, I know a lot of big shot companies using it. Even I have like written a library which was used by Gojek, for example. It was used by Adobe. So a lot of companies use that library, and when you see that comments or mails from that developers that using something, people are be using it, that's one of the good moments. The current company I work in, We literally work on women health. So that's something very unique which I got to work on, and that's like literally my code being used by multiple people. So everything I have written, not just here but anywhere, it is being used by people. So that's already a good part of it, like just being used by people, whatever code you write.
Okay. And what are your thoughts about this, Nelson sir? Please share.
Yeah, I would say that two good moments. It was when we first introduced Kotlin in the company, because all the developers were familiar with Java and Android. And to be honest, in the first moment that we introduced Compose, I was I think Lagaro is a big company, but I think I was the first person to introduce Compose in the company. So it was two good moments. Yeah.
Okay, that's great to hear, sir. And Pankaj sir, like, what are your views on this? Like, your enjoyable moments?
Well, the first time when I used Kotlin for the project was like we got a requirement and the team was looking for the Java itself, that we'll start with Java because we have the resource who knows Java very well. But then it turned out that the other resource went out, so it was just me who has to complete the project. I said, let's take a risk. We'll start with Kotlin. If anything goes wrong, we'll switch to Java. And so
Okay.
generally we get around 3 months to create project, and that project was got completed in a month. And then that project was used as a guidelines for the others too, that if you want to create the app with Kotlin, then this is how you can create. So that was something which was amazing, because through that I brought that language in that startup company. Yeah, earlier all were like, it's very new, we are not so sure whether it's going to work or not. But once they saw that one project is built with this in a record time, and also it's up to the performance too, so why not to switch from Java to Kotlin and then utilize the feature of Kotlin. So that was something which was very amazing for me, to have such a feel that I took a risk and that risk got rewarded too.
Okay,
Okay.
that's great,
That's
sir.
great, sir.
So, so
It's
the
a
last
risky
question.
part of the career. Yeah, yeah. Krishna, go ahead.
Okay, so the last question from my side is from all the three panelists. Sir, what is the number one tip you want to give to others?
Okay, I can just share this one. Uh, just so that everybody knows, when I started my career, I was in the pilot program of Developer Students Club, which is renamed as GDSCs. So I have been through that journey. And just as a tip for students, it's like, do not be afraid to try something out. Also, do not be fascinated by someone else's work. It doesn't mean that if somebody is doing wonders in their career, it will also imply on you. It might, but it will is not the right way to do it. Try it out. If that doesn't work, try something else. Try to see where do you fit in, what interests you more. It can be an engineering domain, it can be something else. Just that, do not stick to it because it might pay you well, or it might sound nice to you. Because I have seen people who, let's say we do machine learning, but they don't even understand the algorithms in itself. So the best part would be try explore everything you can, because this 4 years of your student life is the time to explore a certain level of things. And if you get to a place where you enjoy doing it, pick that up as your career choice, not just anything which sounds fancier.
Okay, thanks, sir. Nelson,
Pankaj, sir,
sir,
like,
what
you
are
can
your
continue.
opinions?
Yeah.
Well, I think I think the tip for the students is go slow, take your time, study the basis, study the basis of computing. I didn't have this basis, so I suffer sometimes because I didn't have this basics thing. And also, don't try to be better to anyone. Just to try to do better every day and learn something new. But go slow. some people wants to be a senior developer in 1 year. Please don't have this target. Go slow, progress in your career, study new things, and that's it.
Okay, that's great, sir. And what are your opinions on this, Pankaj, sir?
Well, the only thing which I would like to say is that you have to be honest to yourself. You really can't see that, okay, this person is doing excel in this particular domain, I also want to be in that particular domain itself. The only person who knows you very well is you yourself. If you know that coding is not your piece of cake, forget about it. Go and explore something else.
Okay. That's it. Okay, so it was a great panelist session, and making it more interesting, let's take two or three questions from audience. And so it's up to you, panelists. Um, it's up to you, audience. Just put down your queries in the YouTube chat box live, and we will take two or three questions live. Go ahead, audience. Okay, we have one question. Instead of learning JavaScript, we can go with Kotlin. Means the work of Kotlin is same or different? So, please, your views on this.
I can share. Maybe Nelson, you can join in if you want, like if you have something. But just the point being is, it's literally comparing two different. It's comparing apple and oranges, honestly. So I can come up and say that I know something in Swift and I could build a backend engineering. These are two different languages. Kotlin is more like just for other prospects. JavaScript is for DOM manipulations. So you need to see if Kotlin actually solves the problem you want to solve with JavaScript. You just cannot compare two languages. If certain things are done with JavaScript which cannot be done with Kotlin, you cannot do it. But if Kotlin supports your DOM manipulations, then yes, definitely it can be a replacement, but not for everything.
Yeah, it really depends what you want to achieve. For instance, if you want to go to web or backend, JavaScript can be a good choice. Otherwise, if you want to go to mobile, it's better to start with Kotlin because it's also similar to Swift. So since you learn Kotlin, it's easy to switch to Swift. But it really depends if you like the backend or front end or mobile.
Okay, the next question is, I am new to this field. The question is from Anant Raj. I am new to this field, so what should be the best resource or maybe path for learning this amazing skill? So your views, sir.
I'm unsure about the question. What is this field? Is in coding? What is this here? Because this amazing skill.
I think he wants to ask about Kotlin, maybe. Like he's new to Kotlin, and where can he learn more about
Yeah.
Kotlin and development in particular?
And then can
Maybe
you just mention the field? Okay, he wants to go with Android. So
Okay.
he's new to Android field and the best resources he wants
Nelson,
for
maybe you want to
learning the
take this.
Android.
Yeah, I think we Google there's some resources available in the Google Developers website. There's a pathway. You can go to the entire course, Google Android course in the Google Developers website, since the basics of Kotlin, then to the advanced stage. So go to the developers.google.com and you'll find the good resources there.
Yeah, and there are a lot of what do you call it? Code labs for
Hmm.
each pathways what Nelson mentioned. So you can literally follow them up. There are good documentations of everything now. Android has like hands down one of the best documentations now I have seen. So if you just want to go that, follow that pathway with the documentation and the code labs and start reading codes. If you understand a bit of open source, just go explore certain level of codes there and you would start understanding this much more. Like, you would find it useful.
Yeah. And just parenthesis here. Study the basics. Study the data structures, algorithms, all this stuff. It's very important.
Okay, the next question is from Birat. He's from our organizing team. His question is, what about Fuchsia OS versus Flutter?
Yeah, I think all event that I attend has this question when I talk about Compose and Kotlin. Yeah, I heard something about Fuchsia. There's a website. I think there's some devices running Fuchsia and Flutter. Well, it's another way to do the things. To be honest, in Agaro, we're starting an initiative to use Flutter because most of our applications we are developing in the last years, it's the same UI for Android and iOS. So it's a good choice if you have the same exact UI, not big integrations with hardware and thing. You can do in Flutter, but yeah, in terms of good experience as developer, I still prefer the native development.
And just to add one more thing to that, Fuchsia, Flutter, a lot of things will come in the future. I would highly recommend stick to your basics, understand what you're doing right, so that whenever you have to pick up something new, let's say Flutter or any technology at certain point, you know what you need to learn because things will come and go. Because I think a couple of years back there was Iconic. I don't remember exactly the phone gap. A lot of frameworks were there, but it all shifted to other platforms. So when you even start doing it, just be strong at your basic points and then move on to whatever you want to do in the ecosystem.
And one more thing is, if
Yeah.
I remember
So,
correctly, then there was certain announcement regarding this too, that Fuchsia will not come for mobile. It will come for other devices. So it's basically like Flutter versus Fuchsia is itself is not a comparison, I would say, because one is OS, other one is UI framework. So you can say like Jetpack Compose versus Flutter or Flutter versus native, because that makes a good comparison. Fuchsia versus Flutter is just like Windows versus Kotlin. So it's just an OS. And where it will come, who knows? Let's see in future.
yeah, it's a great answer. Thank you so much, sir. I hope you got your answer, Birat, and Anant as well. Okay, we have next question from Built It Creative. The question is, what future for Kotlin in iOS development?
I don't
I,
know.
I can share for that. So Kotlin multi-platform is there, which you can use to build iOS development, iOS apps. But the only point to understand here is Kotlin multi-platform is not like Flutter or React Native, where you just write everything in Kotlin and it will derive it for you. In Kotlin multi-platform, you need to like the business logic as a common shared code, and everything else, let's say the UI, it has to be separately built. Let's say Compose with Android and Swift UI for iOS. You cannot do that with, if I'm not wrong, with Kotlin, but there's something called JetBrains Compose, which is pushing towards it, but it's a very early stage.
Yeah, and even the KMM is still in beta. So if you're trying out for some production application, then do at your own risk.
Okay. The next question is again from Virat. The question is, Fleet is made in Kotlin. Are we having any future in web development with Kotlin?
I don't know this fleet. Sorry.
Fleet
It
is the new
is,
IDE, right?
yeah, it was
Yeah,
recently
so
released by JetBrains. I think it's still in beta, is it?
correct. Yeah. So, but again, that's the same point which Pankaj was explaining. Fleet is an IDE. Kotlin in a web dev is already there. So, not exactly what, but see, again, iterating back to the point, there is a future in web dev in Kotlin. In Germany, at least, I see, if I have to put it this way, 80% of the companies I see backend has been written in Kotlin with Spring Boot or Ktor. They literally prefer Kotlin or Java code bases. But again, it depends on where are you working at, and let's say which company is using Kotlin. If it's a very limited scope that you only want to work in a company which uses Kotlin for everything, it's very rare. It's very rare. So you need to pick up take web engineering as a skill rather than Kotlin as a web engineer.
And one more thing which I would like to add here is that if you want to try out developing web app with Kotlin, then do try out Compose multi-platform too. So I tried out building web application with that. It's not as same as what we write for desktop and Android. The way you write code is way different. So the HTML tags that you have, it have equivalent functions there too. But still, who knows in future if they could again make it compatible just like Flutter, one code base, work at all platform. But so far it is like one code base, and if you just copy and paste it for desktop app, it does work. Provided library you are using, if not very Android specific, then exact same code base works for Android and desktop together. Maybe in future if they simplify the stuff and if it works for web, then it will be super helpful.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. I hope, Birat, you got your answer from our panelist. Okay, do we have some more questions or? Okay, I think we can sum it up. Thank you so much, all the panelists, for the beautiful answers, and I hope everyone's doubt is clear on the points. Now, we'd like to invite Ishar for proceeding further. Please, Ishar.
I hope everyone had their doubts, ideas, and queries discussed, and they got their questions answered and got to learn something that they will take over with them. Personally, I was reassured when Himanshu said that the Java is there to be stay. So recently, I've been looking into Java as an enterprise level language, and I got reassured that it won't be obsolete. So thank you, Himanshu, for that. Now it's time for gratitude. We all are grateful to each and everyone who is participating in this hackathon, making it a successful one. Our guest speakers, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Pankaj, and Mr. Himanshu Singh, for their time and for their knowledge. And my co-hosts, Sarika and Krishna, the wonderful audience for putting in their questions, for their enthusiasm, and the foremost Devfolio team and our potential sponsor for making this event happen, and all the GDSCs that have come together to make this event successful. I hope all of you have fun and enriching experience with hackathon and get to learn and build something. I hope all of you have got their problem statement and deciding upon what to build and what what problem to solve with your solutions. I hope to see some amazing solutions right now. At the end of the hackathon. Happy building, everyone. Keep writing code, keep providing solutions, keep doing amazing things. Have an amazing time building, and see you soon with the results. Best wishes, and yeah, keep rocking.
And we are all thankful to our title sponsors Devfolio, Polygon, Filecoin, Solana, Kulopool, Tasked, Replit, Sai Enterprises, and .xyz, and all the organizing team members and the beautiful audience. You are all great audience, and all the very best wishes for all the participants of Compose and Compete. And do your best and win exciting prizes. Keep going, keep learning. All the very best, guys. Thank you for joining this session.
There's bugs everywhere. We're outnumbered, team. Gotta think smart.
Hey, you're leaking memory fluid on me.
There's only one way to win. We must join together. Let's do this. Team Jetpack, unite!
We beat the bugs.
Together! Looks like we'll need a bigger team. Will you join us?
The team needs you. The next Android Developer Challenge is here. And this time, we're focused on Jetpack Compose. Jetpack Compose is Android's modern toolkit for building native UI. Turbocharge your app building with less code, powerful tools, and intuitive Kotlin APIs. Designing beautiful apps has never been quicker. With direct access to the Android platform APIs and built-in support for material design, animations, and more. The beta of Jetpack Compose has launched, and it's ready to help you lift off. This year's Android Developer Challenge will help you take to the skies and fly through Jetpack Compose. Over the next new weekly challenges, each focused on a liftoff insight designed to help you get to know Compose and different parts of the Compose APIs. With own chances to win, there are prizes for every challenge and more. The Android Developer Challenge is here. So the question is, are you ready to lift off?